This is Miss Hauser coming to you with some 8th grade ELA how-tos. This video talks about how to complete Write Like number 2. That Write Like is very similar to Sandra Cisneros' short vignette in The House on Mango Street that we read last week and this week. It models and some more. If you might remember, this is where Nenny, Rachel, Lucy, and Esperanza are bantering and fighting and talking back and forth about the names for snow, the names for clouds, and then the names for one another. You are going to write something very similar based on an argument or situation and dialogue that you had with someone in your life. So for example, I could pick something that happened with me and my sister, an argument that we had, and I would use that to write my Write Like number 2. Let's go check it out. So for Write Like number 2 and some more, you are going to be using dialogue, except for 1 or 2 sentences that tell us who is talking. Remember, you are writing very similarly to Sandra Cisneros, and as you can see in her and some more, she says, Rachel says, Lucy says, and that's where she tells us who is talking. Don't use quotation marks. These things in your writing, normally in books that you read, you'll see quotation marks indicating that people are talking. But as you can see, Sandra Cisneros does not use any quotation marks. So because this is a Write Like, you're not going to use them either. And we also want you to have at least one of the following, either a simile or a metaphor. And remember, a simile and metaphor compares 2 things. Simile uses like or as, and metaphor does not. So you could say, Miss Hauser's hair is as brown as her dresser. That would be a simile. And that gives you some description as what my hair color is. We also want you to use an alliteration or repetition. Alliteration is where you use the same sound over and over, at least twice. So, lovely Lady Laura looks lavish tonight. That's an alliteration. A repetition is where you use the same word or the same idea over and over, and it's where you want to get the point across. You can see that there's a repetition somewhere in here where Esperanza is describing cumulus clouds, and she's pointing them out in the sky by going cumulus, 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 cumulus. That would be a repetition, and it makes you, the reader, know that cumulus clouds are important in that passage. Remember, you're writing like Sandra Cisneros. So some examples of how you can do this is by going back and forth in your dialogue. Miss Fang indicates the blue is the same person and the orange is the other person. Now, the thing that makes this really important is 1, there's no quotation marks. And 2, Miss Vang indicates who is who by saying I say or Olivia says. So it would be like, the Raptors made the championship. They're going to win, I say. No, I think the Warriors are going to win again, says Liv. You can tell that those are 2 different people because it says I say and Liv says. So just like your Write Like, you're going to use your name and somebody else's name that you are having the dialogue with. And you can see Miss Fang goes back and forth with the dialogue. So Olivia speaks, Miss Vang speaks. Olivia speaks, Miss Vang speaks, and so on. And you can see there's no quotation marks. The way that it indicates that someone new is speaking is that there's an indent. So here you see there's no indent in this blue where it says championships. That means this whole thing is Olivia speaking. So here are some examples of don'ts. You are going to go over them in class. It more or less just says the person's name after every single sentence. You don't need to do that because Sandra Cisneros does not do that. You don't need to indicate Stalin or Stalin is talking, Brian is talking. You only need to do it the first time. Introduce them once, and then you're done. All right. There's some more examples that Miss Bang will talk to you about today, but I'm going to skip them so that I can show you your activity. So in order to start your Write Like, you are going to be working on a storyboard. These storyboards are exactly like what we did in class. We summarized the story in our own words in yellow, and then we used text evidence or quotes from this text here to support our summaries. You are going to be doing something very similar on your own storyboard with your dialogue. So today, I really want you to come up with a title for your story and try to think about what dialogue am I having. There are different options for you, and I'm going to breeze through this. So Miss Vang has different ideas for you for your storyboard. The first one is a time you and your friend or family member got into an argument. So you can make your story in your Write Like number 2 about a time that you and someone else got into an argument. So, because I think I'm the better, bigger, older sister, I could talk about how I told that to my little sister all the time, and we would fight about who was better. Another option is that you can talk about a time you and your friend or family member teased each other. So try to think, maybe instead of me and my sister fighting, we were just teasing. Maybe you tease with your other friends and that's how you build your relationship. Maybe you have a sibling that you like to tease. The last option that you could do is a time a friend or family member missed an entire conversation you were having. I'll be honest, I'm not the best listener. So sometimes my friends will be trying to talk to me and I'll just be daydreaming. And they'll be like, hey, Laura, what did I just say? And I'm like, I don't know. So I could write about a time where I was a bad listener and my friend was mad that I missed the entire conversation. Your Write Like number 2 will be all dialogue. So dialogue is when you are talking. So your Write Like should really be person 1 talking, person 2 talking, person 1 talking, person 2 talking. Again, do not use quotation marks. And we want one simile or metaphor and an alliteration or a repetition. Let's go check out some examples. So here will be your storyboard, and this is what yours will look like. You are going to write a caption. Oops. So for example, I could say, Laura and Julia got into a fight about their Barbies. Because yes, my sister and I did fight about our Barbies all the time. So that's a summary about what my first part of my story will be. Then I have to come up with a second part of my story. So that could be Laura said, or Laura thought her boy Barbie was more expensive and better than Julia's boy Barbie. So that tells us that I'm going to start talking about how my toy is better than hers. Once you have your story, you need to start adding the dialogue. So that's where I can do something like, my Ken doll has better eyes than yours, Laura said. And see, I don't use quotation marks. And for the first few bits of dialogue, you want to say who's talking so the reader knows. Then you're going to continue on until you have the end of your story. I would say by caption 6, you should have some resolution. So talk about how did the fight resolve? What was the end of your story? So for caption 6, I could say, in the end, Laura and Julia hugged. So somehow throughout my story, from us fighting about Barbies all the way to the end, we hug. So I have to create some dialogue and some type of fight or argument that gets me from the first part to the last part. So I'm building a story. So I want to have an introduction, a middle, and a clear ending, like a nice sandwich. All right, I hope that helps you understand your Write Like number 2. I am so excited to read your stories. Bye.